أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك. اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله. اللهم لعنهم جميعا. ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. أحسنت. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. What does Fatimah al-Zahra alayhi salam represent in our beliefs? And what does her oppression represent? Why do we congregate for these majalis, or these congregations, these assemblies that we have to commemorate her tragedy and others' tragedies of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam? The Quran is read often. And in fact, how many channels do you see on satellite that are just Quran channels, where there's 24 hours of Quran recitation? And how many people memorize the Quran? How many people recite it in a beautiful way, yet they do not understand what they are reading, and do they not understand what they are reciting? They just read the Quran, and all they are is repeating lines and phrases, and they do not understand what it is. As we have a narration says, how many read the Quran and the Quran curses them? The Quran does la'na upon them as they are reading it. One man, when he passed away, he was a ruler. And the rulers, you know, they have, if you go to the Khalij and one of the kings dies or the emirs dies, all the stations stop and they start reciting Quran. And that's it. It becomes a day of mourning or a week of mourning or whatever they have. Doesn't matter what's on, it's mourning time. You got to cry. So this ruler died, so his son paid for a reciter of the Quran to sit by the grave. And when he finishes, another reciter sits there. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. After a few nights, he saw his father in the dream. His father said, please remove the reciter from the Quran from my grave. He said, but the narrations say it's good for someone to recite by the grave. He said, you do not know. Every time he recites a verse that has to do with something involving an action that Allah has commanded, an angel comes down and says, did you not hear this verse while you were alive? He says, yes, I did. He said, then why did you not act upon it? And he beats me until the next verse comes up and another angel comes down. So sometimes these people read the Quran, recite the Quran, they lack the understanding of the Quran. Just like when you go to the Hajj. How many people do you see do tawaf around the Kaaba? And they have no understanding of who was born in this Kaaba. And they have no understanding of who destroyed the idols that littered the Kaaba. Or the one that prays and commits greater sins. What is the value of that person's tawaf and this person's prayer? It is akin to the value of the recitation of the Quran of these people. When we speak about Fatimah alayhi salam and the Fatimiyyah, we need to understand the amount we are spending here and what we are gaining in return. Because if you understand a subject or understand something beforehand, then you have foresight. You understand where you have placed yourself. And this is what Allah Azza wa Jal, when He mentions in the Quran, فَلَوْلَا نَفَرْ مِنْ كُلِّ فِرْقَةٍ مِّنْهُمْ طَائِفَةٌ لِيَتَفَقَّهُوا فِي الدِّينِ وَلِيُنذِرُوا قَوْمَهُمْ إِذْ رَجَعُوا إِلَيْهِمْ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَحْذَرُونَ. Allah Azza wa Jal mentions here that a group from every division of people, every race, every place should send someone to go understand religion, to come back and teach the people. Why? So in order that they are cautious and they are forewarned, so they have foresight, that they have understanding. This is the most important thing. It's not just to say I'm a Muslim. I remember this guy was driving me to a lecture in London, and on the way I asked him, you drive me every day? He said, yes. I said, and you go to these majalis? He said, yes, this is Muharram. I said, why are you a Muslim? Why are you a Muslim? He replied, because my parents are in it. That was his reply. Because my parents are Muslim, that's why I'm a Muslim. There's no understanding of why he is a Muslim. And I need to have this understanding because the day of judgment is mentioned in the Quran as a day of hasra. وَأَنظُرْهُمْ. Remember, this caution is why. لَعَلَّهُمْ يُنظَرُونَ وَأَنظُرْهُمْ. Allah Azza wa Jalla says to His Messenger, يَوْمَ الْحَسْرَةِ إِذْ قُضِيَ الْأَمْرُ وَهُمْ فِي غَفْلَةٍ وَهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. He says, warn them about this day of hasra. And when we talk about hasra, see, in Arabic, an-nadam is regret. Hasra is more than just regret. It's sorrow and anguish. It's lamentation. You know, when you have nadam, you just regret. You go, I wish I did this. Hasra, you have this sorrow and deep lamentation and grief where you have lost something that cannot be returned. And this day of judgment is referred to as Yawm al-Hasra. So Allah Azza wa Jal says this warning is to warn them of what is to come. If we understand these things of our religion, then we will not have this hasra as it's called. See, and the learning that you acquire, it gives you the thoughts and the theories. It gives you to understand your faith. It gives you the reason as to why you are here. Why is it every Shahr Ramadan? Or you hear this all the time. I'll give you a lot of things. One example. Someone asks, what is Islam? What is the first answer you always see on the internet? Someone says, what is Islam? What is a Muslim? They say Islam is the religion of peace. They keep saying that. And it's not what it means. They keep saying it. It's like they give catered answers for the white overlords. They just want them to be happy from them. You be a Muslim and you be respected. This is the Jewish philosophy. Take a look at the Jew. The Jew acts the way he wants and he demands people to respect him. The Muslim, on the other hand, caters his religion to make everybody happy with him. Islam is a religion of submission to Allah. Man aslama wajhahu lillah. Total submission to Allah. What is a Muslim? Let's not make up the definitions ourselves. We ask Rasulullah, what is a Muslim? He says, Al-Muslim, man salim al-nas min yadihi wa lisanih. In one narration, he says, man salim al-Muslimin. One narration, he says that he is the one whom the Muslims are safe from his hand and his tongue. In another narration, it broadens it. He says, a Muslim is someone who the people, that means everybody, is safe from his hand and his tongue. Meaning when they know you are a Muslim, they should feel that they are safe. They should feel security. They should feel aman around you. That I am in a place where I'm safe. This is the definition. So when someone asks you, why do you commemorate these nights? Then you can reply to them. On tonight, I'm going to actually go over understanding who Fatimah al-Zahra alayha salam is. Allah Azza wa Jal says to His Messenger in the Quran, He says, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهِ فَاتَّبِعُونِي يُحْبِبُكُمُ اللَّهُ وَيَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ ذُنُوبَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah Azza wa Jal says to His Messenger, قُلْ, say to the people, that if the people should say that they love Allah, so we say, we love Allah. He says, then tell them to follow you, and then I will love them. This is how it works. Your role is to emulate those who emulate the book, to imitate those who imitate the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. These are our examples. When it says, قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِيهِمْ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. Allah Azza wa Jal, when it says about the prophets in the Quran, that they are the perfect examples. قَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. That Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam is the perfect example. This is the example that I have to follow. Firstly, just to let you know, anyone that attends these congregations, be it in Muharram, and any of these congregations where there is a commemoration of Allah Azza wa Jal, because these are majalis lillah Azza wa Jal, you are privileged. You are privileged to have attended, because a lot of things stop you from coming here. So remember when there used to be majalis on Wednesday nights, and it was during state of origin, and then someone would be standing like hur. Says, do I stay home or do I? Taban, he's not going to go to hell if he watches the game. But it's not the issue. The issue is that they stand there. They stand there and they think to themselves, do I go watch the game? Or do I come to the majlis? I remember when we used to have, when I was younger, we had Laylatul Qadr would fall during the summer season, during New Year's Eve. And the people say, all right, do I go to Bondi Beach and watch the fireworks, or Brighton Beach and watch the fireworks, or do I, they're not there to watch the fireworks, but you know, that's what they say they're there for. Or do I come and attend the nights of power, Laylatul Qadr, and do A'mal? It's very trying, and the people that actually come to the majalis have overcome something. And I always tell people to attend the majlis. Doesn't matter what you do wrong the night before. The night before you could have been involved in dog baiting and dog fights. You could be involved in anything. Just today, so I'm going to be good. Just for this 1 hour, I'm going to come 2 hours and attend the majlis. It doesn't mean once you fall off the path, that's it, you throw it all in. No, everyone does something wrong. You know, I could have been holding up a bank before I turned up right now. You understand what I'm trying to say? It doesn't matter as long as you turn up and try and make amends, because God's door is always open. You are privileged for attending these. Firstly, there are several points I must make apparent before we can understand what we need to know about Fatimah alayhi salam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. If I enter a home without knowing the occupants of this home, I may not give this home its worthy respect. I may not give it the respect that is due. Likewise, if someone knocked on your door, alaykum salam wa rahmatullah, before I answer the door, do you guys just get up and open the door? You want to first work out who it is at the door. Is it male or female? Is that relevant? Of course, it's relevant for me as a male, so I can be dressed appropriately. Especially in summer, you know, half the houses you go to, if it wasn't for underwear, they're naked. This is how it is. People's houses, for some reason, they think it's okay for them to dress in this manner. And they do it in front of women that are like their sister-in-laws. Your sister-in-law is not halal on you. You see him, he's topless, wearing shorts. You go look at the Masail of the Maraja. Look what the scholars say. It is forbidden for a woman to look at the parts of a man that are not generally shown. And if you look at what he's talking about, he speaks about anything besides the arms and the legs below the knees. So it's forbidden above the knees and the torso for a woman to look at a foreign man. Forbidden. Then you see guys, they wear singlets and they'll be topless in front of their sister-in-law. And they say, so what? You know, we're a family. This is the way it works. So, I have to know who's at the door. If the person at the door is a friend or a foe, how am I going to greet the friend or foe? Or if the person at the door is a policeman with an arrest warrant, I chuck on my hoodie and jump out the back window. No. So I get the idea, who is at the door before I open the door. So I know how to greet this person. So I know how to deal with this person. So I know how to deal with this situation. When I have this knowledge, then I have the ability to apply the application of how I deal with this person. This is why you need to understand who Fatima alayhi salam is. When she is introduced in Hadith al-Kisa, and we have a general rule, when you introduce anybody, you introduce the most known subject, like in Arabic. If I want to introduce someone to you, and it's one of the people attending the center right now, they turn up with a person you've never seen and you don't know from a bar of soap, as they say. I don't introduce the guy that you don't know. For example, if you were to turn up and there's, let's use examples that are in this country today, living in this country today. Someone that's really popular and known would be someone like Russell Crowe, who's an actor from this country, living in this country. And Russell Crowe was involved with other people in the purchase of South Sydney. Before, there was a guy there called George Piggins. And if I was to say this is George Piggins and his friend, everyone's going to turn around and go, George who? You introduce the person that is known and saying this is his associate. This is the general rule when it comes to introducing people. In the case of Hadith al-Kisa, this rule is pushed aside for a reason. When Allah Azza wa Jal introduces who is beneath the Kisa, who is there? Who is the most important figure there? Is it not Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam? Who is there? Allah does not introduce by introducing him first. He says, Hum Fatima wa Abuha. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says it is Fatima and her father, and her husband and her sons. She's the one that's introduced. What is the reason behind this? Why has the rule been pushed aside here? Allah Azza wa Jal wants to enforce and highlight the importance of this woman. And even to the point that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam used to say that she is the mother of her father, to emphasize her status. She is the one whose wedding was celebrated in the heavens before it was celebrated on the earth. When we talk about Nabi Isa alayhi salam, and we mention of the greatest miracles of Nabi Isa was what? That he spoke to the people in the Mahd. When he was in his crib, he spoke to the people. Of the qualities of Fatima alayhi salam, she spoke to her mother while she was in her womb. In her womb, she spoke to her mother. Not like when you're talking, when a woman's talking to the child, we're talking, she used to talk to her. She used to converse with her. This is of her qualities. And she was known as Sayyidat Nisa al-Alamin. She was the lady of the women of the world. even if you look at the narrations, and this is one narration which I will discuss tomorrow night in more detail, that is narrated that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam, this is narrated in the books of the other sects of Islam. That the narration says, Rasulullah said, Fatimatu bad'atun minni faman aghdabaha aghdabani. That Fatima is a part of me. Whoever angers her, angers me. Whoever makes her wrathful has made me wrathful. So likewise, she is a source of understanding Islam. And she has been purified by the right of the Quran. Where Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ لِيُذْهِبَ عَنْكُمُ الرِّجْسَ أَهْلَ الْبَيْتِ وَيُطَهِّرُكُمْ تَطْهِيرًا. And I've mentioned before several times, when you hear the word inna, and we said that this is like saying most certainly. But then you have innama. This is what makes something fully contained. That it is this and only this. So this is certainly, certainly. It's like saying certainly, certainly. And then God goes on to say, liyudhib. This is another certain. One letter after another, they call them tawkid. That one letter after another that is being used to give certainty to this statement that all impurities have been removed from you, Ahl al-Bayt. And you have been purified, a thorough purification. And Fatima alayhi salam, in all the narrations, is of these people that is purified. Allah Azza wa Jal orders His Messenger with Hadith al-Thaqalain to tell the people, إِنِّي تَارِكٌ فِيكُمْ الثَّقَلَيْنِ كِتَابُ اللَّهِ وَعِتْرَتِهِ, that I leave amongst you two weighty things, the book of Allah and my progeny. Of this progeny is Fatima alayhi salam. So just as Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and al-a'imma al-atar, the immaculate imams, are authorities, Fatima alayhi salam is an authority and a proof and a hujjah. And a companion is not a hujjah, only the 14 infallibles. So her stance is the stance of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, and it is our stance. It is our stance when we come to our religion. This isn't someone that acts on emotion, and this isn't someone that acts on personal interest. So before we understand the tragedy of Fatima, we need to establish this. And her words and her actions are akin to her father's. When we hear the Quran says, لا ينطق عن الهوى, that Rasulullah does not act from his own desires, Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam does not act from her own desires. I'm sure the majority of you, what I've said, are accustomed, are understanding of all this. But we always need the reminder, because you do have doubts. How? During the year you get all these YouTube videos. Because I sit with a lot of people these days, and they watch all these atheist videos. Like they'll sit there and they'll watch Matt Dillahunty. They'll sit there and they'll watch Richard Dawkins. They'll sit there and watch Dan Barker. They'll watch all these people who have fallacious arguments. Arguments that make no sense, but they use good rhetoric. So when they talk, you say, you know what, they make sense. Because they use big words. And that's one of the biggest problems. Sometimes you hear a big word and you say, wow, this guy's smart. What he's saying must be right. Because he's using big words. And this is what happens when you're listening to those that attack the tragedy of Fatima alayhi salam. They try and use all these outlandish ideas, and they use good rhetoric. They try and convince you with their words. But what they do is they pull you away from the truth. Recently I was talking to my brother about we're talking about Islamic courts. And we said, we established in Islamic courts, two things are very important. Number one, there are no lawyers in an Islamic court. Why? Because what do lawyers use? Lawyers use rhetoric. Your lawyers, what? They explain, and what they do is they stretch out the law. It's an interpretation of the law. And law is made in courtrooms, in the judicial system. Law is made through precedents from previous cases, and it's all about rhetoric and how they can explain their case. And it's not about fact. Another thing in an Islamic court is you can't use any statements that have been written previously to the court. The only statements that are used are in the actual court. You have to be asked there and then, because sometimes you make a statement, this statement could be made under duress, under coercion. This statement could be made, someone's putting a gun to your head, beating you up, softening you up. You know, sometimes one of the most common practices with the police, when they're being extremely nice and someone tells them even all their birth defects, he goes, this guy's a top bloke. I'll tell him all my problems. Tells him everything and then finds out that he's there to, what? Use everything for him? No, use everything against him. So in Islamic courts, we don't have this. We don't have this use of rhetoric. And this is what it comes to understanding religion. And understanding, we only use facts. قُلْ هَاتُوا بُرْهَانَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. If someone wants to come forward and he has an argument, you say, bring your evidence. Bring your proof. If they tell you water is not clear, it's opaque. So, right, bring your evidence. Bring forth your evidence. Okay. Once we understand her position, we can understand her tragedy. And we need to understand from the beginning of history, from when Rasulullah had told that she is the trust that I've left for the Ummah, all the Imams would speak about the oppression of Fatima. And you will even have poets that read from Al-Himyari onwards, that read poetry about the oppression of Fatima. Our ulama from Sheikh al-Mufid until today speak about the oppression of Fatima alayha salam. Even though Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, when the people asked him, what reward do you want from us for all you've done? All the prophets were asked, what reward do you want? You've done so much, what do you want in return? Every prophet would say, I want no reward. My reward is with Allah Azza wa Jal. Even Rasulullah said the same thing. But they kept nagging. They said, no, you want something. What do you want? They kept asking and asking, and this is what he would reply. Then Allah Azza wa Jal said to him, say this. He said, قُلْ لَا أَسْأَلُكُمْ عَلَيْهِ أَجْرًا إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَةِ. He says, I do not want any reward. Allah tells him, say, I do not want any reward except what? Love and kind regard to my family. This is all I want. Not because of nepotism, not because of favoritism, not because of bias, but because of their position with Allah Azza wa Jal. Even when it comes to their regard and their love, it is obligatory. It is not about whether I like them or I don't like them. It doesn't matter. You know, sometimes people say, oh, this is history. It doesn't matter about discussing. No, their love is obligatory. It is so obligatory that I will mention a few of the narrations that are there, and then inshallah I'll round it up with this. When this verse is mentioned, إِلَّا الْمَوَدَّةَ فِي الْقُرْبَةِ, they ask Rasulullah, who is this qurba? Who are they? And this is mentioned in Ad-Durr al-Manthur for Jalal ad-Din al-Suyuti, who is a mufassir of the Quran with the other sects of Islam. He says that قال Rasulullah, they are Ali and Fatima and their sons, Ali and Fatima and their sons, Ali and Fatima and their sons. 3 times that he repeats this. So their love is the one that is mentioned in this verse. Even in a narration with Salman Al-Farisi sees Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam prostrate 5 times. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, is this a prayer or is this something new that Allah has revealed upon you? And he says, no. He says, Jibreel came down and said, Ya Rasulullah, verily Allah loves Ali. He said, so I prostrated out of gratitude. And then he said, verily Allah loves Fatima, so I prostrated out of gratitude. Then he said, verily Allah loves Al-Hasan, so I prostrated out of gratitude. Then he said, verily Allah loves Al-Hussein, so I prostrated out of gratitude. Then he said, Inna Allah yuhibbu man ahabbahum. That Allah, Muhammad. Verily Allah loves whoever loves them. So it is an obligation for me to love them. In another narration, and this is also mentioned in Kanz al-Ummal, which is also a narration book for the other schools of thought. He says, أَدِّبُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ عَلَى ثَلَاثَ خِصَالٍ. On 3 things, raise your kids or nurture your kids upon 3. You know, bring them up on 3 things. He says, حُبْ نَبِيِّكُمْ, love of their Prophet, وَحُبُّ أَهْلِ بَيْتِهِ, and love of his Ahl al-Bayt, وَقِرَاءَةِ الْقُرْآنِ, and reciting the Qur'an. In another narration, also, this one's mentioned in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. He says, أحسن الحسنات حبنا, عن أهل البيت عليهم السلام, وأسوأ السيئات بغضنا. And then Rasulullah says, أحبوني لحب الله. This is also in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. وأحب أهل بيتي لحبي. So firstly he says, the best of deeds is our love, loving Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. And the worst of sins is to hate Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam. And he says, then Rasulullah says, love me for the love of Allah, and love my Ahl al-Bayt for my love. In another narration, also mentioned in Kanz al-Ummal and by As-Suyuti, he says, Asasul Islam hubbi wa hubbu Ahli Bayti. The asas, the foundations of Islam is the love of me, meaning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and my progeny. I'll finish it off with a story, and inshallah tomorrow night we'll discuss the oppression of Fatima alayhi salam. A man, just to let you know about love of Ahl al-Bayt, and this is so important. This is your ticket. Because when you love them, then you do for them. When you really love them. Just like when a guy or a girl likes someone and they want someone, they wait every second to hear the beep on their phone for the message. They wait every moment. They can't live without them. They can't even see what the world's going to be without them. This real love of Ahl al-Bayt alayhim salam, where everything is about them. A man comes to visit Rasulullah in Medina. He comes to Masjid al-Nabawi al-Sharif. He enters the masjid and he leaves. And he does this on a daily basis. One day he enters. Taban Rasulullah's people there and everything. He enters, he leaves, but then he comes back and he enters again, then he leaves. So Rasulullah beckons towards him, he calls the people, brings him, he comes. And he comes up to the Rasul, greets the Rasul. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says to this man, every day you come into the masjid and you enter and then you leave. Taban Rasulullah knows the reasons. This is to show the people. He said, but today you entered twice. He says, why? He said, Ya Rasulullah, every day when I wake up and I see how life is and all the burdens we have, he says, I have no regard to living. He says, I come to the masjid to look at you because when I see you, then my heart becomes content because of my love for you. He said, but on this day when I entered, he said, my heart did not get enough of looking at you. So I had to come for a second time so my eye can be full of looking upon you, Ya Rasulullah. So then days pass and this man doesn't return. Rasulullah asks about him. They say, Ya Rasulullah, he works in this region. So he goes towards where he works and he asks the people about him. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, he has passed away. And he says to them, how was he amongst you? They say he was an ordinary man. Nice man, but he wasn't overly zealous. He wasn't those full religious people, just an ordinary man. And he says, oh people, know that he is of Ahl al-Jannah because he used to love me. And this is the importance of their love. Suffices that it grants you paradise. And that is sufficient. That is more sufficient than anything else. Inshallah, tomorrow we will talk about the oppression of Fatima. And not only the oppression, the suppression of this oppression. Why is it people work overtime to end this? And why is it so many people are working overtime to revive the Sunnah and to revive the commemoration of these majalis? We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to make us of those that rise with our Master to take the rights of Fatima, to take revenge for what happened to Fatima alayhi salam. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal, especially at these trying times in the world, as you see the Muslim world is being bombarded throughout. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to give our brothers victory in the world as they struggle against the oppressors that rule. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us victory and to hasten the reappearance of our Master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan Al-Mehdi Ajallah Farajhu al-Sharif. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. والأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح الشهداء وإلى أرواح موتاكم جميعا نهدي لهم ثواب هذه القراءة وثواب سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.